Good evening and welcome back to Iridinod, otherwise known as Rhythmgates, our fortress underneath a glacier, very long way underneath a glacier, where we have just received a new bunch of immigrants. So we now have a reasonable population, and some of them are quite odd. In particular, we have Cog Slapped Coal, who is a dwarf doctor necromancer. He's quite young, an ardent worshipper of Rakas. Can we find out who Rakas is?
How many gods are in this universe? And is there a convenient...
You can find out about them a bit. Here's our information. So people have attempted to glorify Rakas. Rakas is associated with trade and wealth, which seems slightly odd for a necromancer to have been involved with. Usually necromancers like, death.
Proper goth gods.
Yeah. I mean, I think you can become a necromancer merely by reading a necromancer's secrets. So it is possible to become one without actually worshipping a god who gives you secrets.
So necromancer is more of a qualification than an occupation.
Yes. Hence doctor here.
Yeah.
Doctor is is what they are skilled in, really. Being a necromancer, I think, means that he is that he knows the secrets of life and death and is thus immortal in the sense of won't naturally age, and won't die of old age, and doesn't need to eat or drink, which will eventually be a problem. Yes. Pink Beast says, as far as I know, necromancy is horribly infectious, in as much as anyone can catch it by reading a tome, and any literate necromancer can write a tome. This, of course, requires the literate necromancer to have something to write the tome on.
I think in the decade of respiratory disease pandemic, that's not horribly infectious. It's not as if you write tomes by accident as a side effect of walking down the street or going into a room.
Yes, true.
You don't have to wear particular garments and stop people from accidentally writing tomes.
Yes, I mean, there are more infectious diseases in Dwarf Fortress, or at least syndromes. Though, actually, I don't think they're generally infectious. It's quite rare that you get something where you will produce more, where by being infected with it, you produce infectious medium yourself. The problem is that if you have, like, a forgotten beast that spews deadly dust all over the place, then everywhere will be covered in deadly dust, and every time someone treads in it, they will spread it around. Though contaminants do seem to kind of multiply a bit, so, like, I suppose it's pretty close to being infectious. But you can't generally carry those between fortresses, I don't think. Whereas you can totally carry necromancy between fortresses. So yes, an interesting question is, do we give Cog Slapped Coal the facility to write books? And hence produce an entirely necromantic fortress? So yes, so that's one of our interesting people. They're, I think, a reasonably... yes, they are legendary in all of the medical abilities. So I think we may well want to... I mean, they should have those labours enabled anyway. I feel for symbolism, it doesn't actually have much effect other than that. We should make them our chief medical dwarf. simply because, like, they really should be. And I think probably our previous chief medical dwarf. Damn it! I should have switched this over in the other order.
What happens if you try to get a medical dwarf to do some different job? Do they?
No.
Oh.
It would be really nice to be able to inspect things. Right, yes, so I'm going to turn off. I'll leave diagnosis on because the other guy wasn't a diagnostician anyway, but I'll turn off the other things. Let's try to get the... it's fine. I found them. It was the expedition leader, which is the obvious person to stick in every random job. So, yes. So we have our newly arrived necromancer. We have someone who is a trapper and, like, bugger all use for anything else at the moment. So they're essentially an unassigned peasant we could use for anything. We have this guy who we've made broker, who, like, yes, is a legendary appraiser, expert intimidator, master conversationalist, expert comedian, expert pacifier, professional student, professional reader, adequate critical thinker, and, like, a skilled observer as well. I wonder what that's useful for. Like, they don't have any very useful qualifications, though. We have legendary weaponsmith. Yes, well, that's quite nice. Once we've managed to smelt ourselves something. So I think I don't really need to reorganise people yet. I think we're mining out some tetrahedrite down here. And this is, at the moment, technically inside the fortress. And tetrahedrite will get us copper, and we can use copper to make weapons, and we appear to have a legendary weaponsmith, so, like, we probably should get weapons. We're going to want... I feel that we need our dwarves to be reasonably well armed and armoured, because the caverns are a dangerous place, as we can tell from the fact that two citizens and one visitor have so far died in the caverns due to monsters. Well, due to wildlife. So we ideally want to actually arrange that doesn't happen, which I think means having a small military who can actually go out and hit things, and anyone whose job it is to go out into the caverns wearing at least tolerable armour, so that, like, they won't immediately succumb to something with pointy teeth and venom. But copper armour will probably do fine against wildlife, even fairly poor quality copper armour. I have a kind of feeling that we should, if we're going to have an export industry, having kind of pondered this a bit, we've got lots of gems and lots of silver. So really, I think we need a jewellery industry. So we should set up someone to become a good jeweler and someone to become a good metal crafter, and then set them to converting silver and jewels into little trinkets that we can sell to the tourists. So that's the kind of plan, I think. And yes, up on the surface we have this thing. I am very slightly worried that it will turn out that things stored up here get damaged by the cold, but obviously nothing made of granite is going to get damaged up here, so and we know the value of things now, which is nice. Well, that large alexandrite is going to get us a reasonable amount of stuff, at least, even if all these amulets and figurines are not. So if we're going to head in the direction of that, so we've got someone who's dedicated as a jeweler, haven't we? Yes. Who also has healthcare enabled, which is probably excessive. Do necromancers have to sleep? Sorry, just looking up whether necromancers sleep. They do not age, need to drink, eat, or require sleep. Right. So that means it's perfectly reasonable to have one person whose job it is to sort out medical emergencies, because they will always be awake. I mean, until they're the person who suffers the medical emergency, obviously. So we should probably keep the necromancer indoors. So that they don't run into wildlife. Right. So we've got someone who's already a jeweler, and is this a legendary stonecrafter? I did Iridinod in 166. In Malachite 166. So that's another new arrival, isn't it? Yes. Sorry, G. Competent miner, legendary stonecrafter, bugger all use for anything else. Creator of an unnamed artifact, apparently. See, what I want is a legendary jeweler and a legendary metal crafter. Though I suppose someone who is a legendary stonecrafter may have properties that make them also quite a good Where's the bit where I find out that she's... Alright, good feel for social relationships. Meagre creativity, poor focus, little difficulty with hands. Not much else by way of, like, either being good or bad at actually making stuff. Naturally. And so our other crafter... It's like various kinds of novice thing, but nothing actually very good. So I'm inclined to make our legendary stonecrafter also a metal crafter. And then have a general aim that we start making metal trinkets with inlaid jewels as our main export. So what's the state of our jeweler? Novice gem setter, novice gem cutter. Well, that's, yeah, right, you're going to have to do some work. You're going to need to learn a bit, I think. So what I think I should do actually is say, what's the stone we have kicking around down here? So we have a fair amount of diorite. Let's just say you're going to cut diorite. So that they'll jeweler can get some practice at cutting stone before they have to start cutting something that is valuable. So another question is, quickly, what right, so alexandrite is valuable, Levin opals are valuable, lapis lazuli is worth next to nothing. Lapis lazuli, actually, yes, we should be mining and cutting lapis lazuli as our experiments, but frankly they may be worth, cut lapis lazuli may be worth barely more than cut diorite. Claro opal, on the other hand, is worth having. Right, so what on earth am I actually doing now? I've reassigned a few people. We're shifting stuff up here. We're fairly confident that when the caravan arrives, it will be useful. There is still a giant cave hippo kicking around, as I recall. Yes. So our kind of target, I think, is probably to be in a position to make our own weapons, even though we kind of hope to buy them, because we're going to want, even if we don't make things out, our own weapons out of copper, we're going to want to make we're going to want to smelt silver for making jewellery. Right, okay, so that means that down here we're going to need some more space for making charcoal, though we probably want to do the actual smelting upstairs because ores are heavy to shift around and metal bars and charcoal are not. Right, so let's unpause. So the miners have just cleared off to dig me some space to start making to build a wood furnace. They're building doors because we're trying to get at least halfway reasonable number of bedrooms. We do actually have a decent number of beds at least. Right, we found more claro opal. That will be useful. We appear to have a shortage of coffins again, don't we? So let us, as a fairly high priority, make a coffin. So one thing I'd quite like to know is whether we can build, whether we can make ice statues, because obviously the entrance to the trade depot up here should have ice statues around it. It's possible the necromancer will like solve our problem of that will solve our the necromancers will solve our excess corpses problem, but I'm not sure. I think necromancers only randomly raise things when they're in combat, though. No, can go in either direction. It's like Anyong in that regard. Yes. Right, that will get our recruit properly buried. What are you doing, you weird necromancer? Why did you just go into the rubbish dump? Oh right, you were installing that door. I'll forgive you. Let's just schedule pulling the lever in order to squish the object that's been left in the rubbish dump. Squish.
These dwarves do occasionally put me in mind of Vogons. They wouldn't even pull a lever without a work order signed in triplicate.
Yes. It's true.
Or mangled scale.
The mangled scale of a crundle. Right, so those are some perfectly ordinary rectangular diorite cabochons. Actually, does gem cutting skill actually have any result? Like does the skill help?
No. And what do you
Skill level of a gem cutter affects the cutting speed and quality of large gems and gem crafts, but not the quantity of crafts produced. And thus presumably also doesn't have much effect on the quality of the cut gems.
Not all crafts will strip in all the highest quality.
Well, it doesn't have quality at all. So I think I don't actually need them to be cutting utterly worthless things. Probably I want to mine out some lapis lazuli as our dull. Gem. Unfortunately, down here we mostly have claro opal, which is... Oh, there's some lapis lazuli, right. that should be a low priority. Do it when you get a chance. Annoying that lapis lazuli looks like claro opal, and one of them I want to be mining out at the moment, and the other one I don't. Because, like, while it might be nice to have claro opal, we don't actually need it yet. That'll get us at least a little bit of lapis lazuli for our gem wrangling. So I've stuck a door on the rubbish dump so that the so as to keep any miasma in, and to avoid accidentally hurling objects out of the rubbish dump at the wrong moments. Like if you've gone and dumped objects on top of the drawbridge. So what I want to try up here is to build a mason's workshop and just see what we can make out of ice up here. I suppose actually we've got ice downstairs, so we've got ice and we've got a mason's workshop downstairs, so I can just see what happens if I try to if I select this thing. Oh, and I need to make charcoal, don't I? And say make me rock blocks. Can I then say, oops, no, details, so that doesn't give me the option of ice, unless it's filed under W for water, yes. And so presumably similarly, if I ask to make a statue, oops, no, details, specify stone. I'm slightly confused because I only seem to be able to... Oh, because this probably has a feeding thing.
I assume not all these rocks are actually available.
Indeed, I think this workshop is actually set to only take materials from, I think, from this. Oh yes, from this stockpile, which contains almost nothing. Which helps with causing the mason not to wander all the way across the map carrying enormously heavy boulders, but does mean that there's only a few things that you can actually ask it to make things from, which is why I I can only choose diorite and rock salt are at the top of the list and have numbers next to them.
Yes.
But ice doesn't appear in the list at all, so I think that means that, as I suspected, you can't make any portable object out of ice. And since statues can be moved around, you can't thus make them out of ice. You can make bridges out of ice, and you can build walls and floors and staircases and such like out of ice. And according to the wiki, you can sell ice to merchants.
Random, like walls and floors, but not staircases.
So we could just take all the ice we've got lying around up here and give it to the merchants, and get them to haul it away for us. Though I kind of feel we should build some kind of impressive entranceway to our fortress. Though actually we could do that by casting it out of ice, which would be much more spectacular. So I think we should not actually make any attempt at doing that yet. Meanwhile, down here we should build a wood furnace so that we can convert some of our wood into charcoal and send it up to the metal mines. We have now got all those beds installed, so we can make sure the rooms are the right size, if nothing else. And one of our new citizens won't need a bed. And yes, I made a pig's ear of the layout up here, so there's a wall that's gratuitously thicker than it needs to be. Not quite that thick, sadly. I'd intended to run a corridor through it, but I've made it one square narrower than it needs to be to run a corridor through it. Still only a novice gem cutter. I suppose this cutting diorite does at least give us a stock of low value gems we can practice setting. So I kind of feel that it would be nice to have, if I'm going to build this jewellery industry, it should probably have its own little room. Yes, so I think the miners may be wandering deeper and hence discovering more things, more of the caverns, thus also potentially discovering more creatures, though none yet. Good. No, I'm interested in the lapis lazuli, bizarrely. Oh yeah, we can go down there in due course. Actually, stop it. Let's not try to get into there just yet. Actually, no, we can do it diagonally, can't we? And at least do those two squares. Claro Opal, yes. I think we've got an architect around somewhere. We may be a bit short of tables and chairs in the dining room come everything else. So maybe it's time to start, like, organising things a bit more. So at the moment we have this enormous great stockpile area. So that looks like we've got things that could be stored in bins that aren't in bins, which means we need more bins. It looks like we're a bit short on architects. Maybe I should just grab a random person who doesn't have anything to do and tell them to be an architect. Architecture.
Architecture is probably good for something. I have too many tabs open there. I wrote tabs every day.
So we're a few doors short. Let's schedule building some doors as well. No, we're still making that coffin. Right, and we've got more bins now, and things are getting stuffed into bins again. Good. Our mason is kind of busy. Doesn't matter anyway, because what we need for this job is a furnace. No, we need a mason. Okay. So, we do also have a giant arm kicking around. So what's our general armour situation like and such like? We don't have much by way of Cirrus armour yet. We can't actually equip more than one person. So that means we are actually going to want a forge reasonably early in order to make more. I thought I'd like designate. Yes, this is a very low priority smoothing job. Maybe you could go and do something else. We have lots of masonry jobs. But no, yours are going to stand up there smoothing things. You're becoming quite a decent digger, aren't you? Accomplished, yeah.
Full fortress, have a digger.
So that's us discovering yet more of the caverns. There are still bits of the caverns we don't know about. Okay. How scary is a giant olm? Well, so far, punching it seems to be doing all right. Giant amphibian predator found underground near water. So there.
Amphibian. Oh good, we're on the lookout for spare amphibians.
I'm slightly worried by the fact that the glove... Oh no, what? That someone still thinks they're trying to kill a giant cave hippo. Please don't. It doesn't work. Only... What? Do I have to investigate selecting individuals? Oh, right. Oh, so the person who was the leader of that squad is now dead, and therefore apparently still has an order, but their role has an order. Right, cancel the order for that role. Maybe put someone else in there. I mean, I think I'm probably... I may just leave the... I may just leave the cook to deal with this. Because so far the cook is doing a perfectly tolerable job of killing the giant owl by punching it. And has now run away now that the giant olm is immobile. Well, that seems reasonable to me. The giant olm is terrified. And the dwarves are now leaving it alone. Actually, I suspect we may need to make those staircases longer. That lot's all lapis lazuli. As well, that's claro opal. That was a great big lump of claro opal, wasn't it? Yes. So is that lot. So yes, that should get us a bit more lapis lazuli. Generally unwell giant olm because someone met up with it and just did their best to kill it. Necromancer is running around collecting lapis lazuli, which is nice. So we're probably getting to the point where we could actually start doing something with that. We still don't. Our mason is still comprehensively distracted by smoothing all the bedrooms. It's not a high priority. Stop it.
Interrupted by project manager.
So there's some slightly inaccessible lapis lazuli. We're probably going to have to engage in a bit of engineering to deal with mining things in this rather wet area. Yes. Not sure how we'll do that. At least at this layer where we're like everything's underwater. Oh yes, we need a water supply for our fortress, don't we? I had a plan for that, which would suggest that we want to set up a new kind of dining room and other useful things room off to the east here, because I think we then channel water in from that small pond there. So the slight difficulty is that ends us up over open cavern. There is that tiny patch there that is indoors, but I think we may actually need to do a bit of building in the caverns in order to make like an enclosed shaft that we can drop the well down through. I mean, we could run it down through that, I suppose. That would work. Kind of amusing. So that would suggest putting a room somewhere over here where the well is. Okay. Slightly higher priority than So let's do that, and then sink a staircase through there, and we want a at least 2 units deep reservoir underneath. So I think then I'll build like that sort of size. Actually, let's make that. Actually, that's the wrong position, isn't it? Because what I'm going to do is to dig a shaft then next to that staircase. There. So for symmetry, let's have the shaft land in the centre of the well rather than the staircase. Doesn't really matter. The reservoir rather. And then we need to work out how we run the water in there without causing extreme embarrassment. So the obviously safe way is to do it at this level. So to cut a channel, so to make a little leat from here through this lot, terminating here, stick some kind of a controllable door here so that we can lock, so that we only let the water in when we actually need it. That seems like a reasonable approach and will probably not lead to extreme embarrassment. So in that case, what we want to do for that is to carve a channel through that lot. And indeed all the way through to there, I think. And then on the floor above we'll sort out cutting the last bit. That's going to require building a lot of walls as well. It's going to require making some blocks, which is going to require our mason to stop being distracted. Right, we've discovered pretty much all of the caverns, all of this layer of caverns now. There's a few tiles right at the edge that we haven't seen, but and yes, okay, there's a bit up there as well. Right. We just have a very ill giant owl now. Desperately hoping it never meets another dwarf. Okay, we don't actually have any blocks left. Just to make things look prettier. Right, finally doing some masonry. As in a hard rock that doesn't have any purpose, any economic purpose, like making, like making steel or such like as flux.
I mean, making door rails sounds like a useful purpose to me.
Yes, but it's not specific to the material you're using. I mean, in this case, yes, we can change the categorization of rocks, but the thing is that actually the problem is that this.
Oh right, so economic is a categorization you set.
Yes, it defaults to something reasonable, but
rock that I decree to be reserved for some purpose other than general.
yes. I think so. I think actually, while there is a category here of economic stone, actually it's the fact that all of these stones are marked as red that means that they can't be used for anything. That they won't be used when a job just asks for stone. So if I do that with it, I think then it can be used in the same way as all of those can. So but that is not actually our problem. Our problem is that we're running out of rock. Plus, this stockpile appears to be willing to take ore, which it should probably not be.
Someone is tunneling through rock as we speak, and at the same time we're running out of rock.
Well, we're running out of rock in the place where the mason's workshop's set to draw from, because if I don't restrict where it can draw from, then the mason, upon deciding to do some masonry, will pick up the rock nearest to them and take it to the workshop. Which, given that the boulders weigh like hundreds of kilos, may mean they take quite a long time getting to the workshop, because they won't use a wheelbarrow, because wheelbarrows are attached to stockpiles. Right, so let us make some charcoal, so that we have a stock of charcoal. Meanwhile, someone is probably collecting some rock to put in that stockpile. Like we hope. Yes. Their tasted rock may be a bit weird though. What have they brought? They brought some more bloody... Look, that's no use at all there. Stop putting tetrahedrite in my nice stockpile. Now no one's going to make anything... Oh, I give up.
You put tetrahedrite in the stockpile you can making doors. Do you get tetrahedral doors?
No. You get tetrahedrite doors, which are slightly different. Let's just remove that restriction so that you can make things out of any rock, and I'll accept that you may walk across the whole map carrying it. Because you're mostly spending your time in the fortress where there's plenty of rock. Being as you are a mason, your job doesn't actually take you outside the fortress much. So, how is our tetrahedrite mining going? Right, there's the tetrahedrite mines. We found quite a bit of it. We still don't quite have a 3x3 area where we can just construct a smelter. So let's dig out a little bit more in this area, in the middle, and so that we've got enough space for a smelter. If we remove those, actually we don't even need to do that. We can build the smelter one to the left of there, and that means we only need to remove that one lump of rock salt. No, nice. We might also want to mine out some galena, simply because that gives us lead, which is even less valuable for learning metal crafting on. So, does anyone think it's actually their job to burn wood? No. Right, well, you're our carpenter. It seems reasonable that wood burning should be part of your job.
Wikipedia says tetrahedrite gets its name from the distinctive tetrahedron-shaped cubic crystals. That's more confusing than I expected that sentence.
I think that's cubic in the crystallographic sense. Right, good. So now we're making some charcoal, which is nice. Let's also make F4 our get me to this tetrahedrite seam button. There is plenty more tetrahedrite. Kind of inclined to just connect that staircase with a couple of doors to the caverns and hope for the best until we've cleared out that tetrahedrite. See, we don't have any spare blocks at the moment, do we? And making it out of raw stone's tedious. Interesting. Have you assigned yourself a bedroom even though you don't sleep? Oh, of course you've got bedroom because your spouse needs to sleep, and thus you have a bedroom. Yep. Okay, I'll accept that. Presumably our bedrooms are now not quite so terrible, yes. Right, we've almost finished that lump of smoothing. And meanwhile we are burning wood to make a decent quantity of charcoal. And maybe our stone worker will go downstairs, maybe. I may actually have to put more effort into this. Like temporarily take him off smoothing, because apparently smoothing is the most exciting thing you can do. Yes, we may well be getting a caravan soon. We don't have that much trade goods. Maybe I should quickly make some more. Start cutting lapis lazuli a bit. So, yes. No, gone up to the next floor. I am going to turn off your stone detailing for now, because you keep doing it even though it's a very low priority stone detailing job. I really need you to do some other work. We don't have very much there. It's basically that large Alexandrite that's going to get us all our money, which is not really enough. So well, let's see what happens. I mean, if we need to make more stuff, we can do it while the caravan's here. What am I doing? Oh. I'm going to run out of map in this direction soon. Now our stoneworker's gone to sleep. Okay, we do have another helmet snake, but they're on the... It's on the upper levels, which we're not generally... Upper cavern levels, which we're not visiting very much at the moment. It's hard to tell whether this one is a plump helmet snake. It's a white helmet snake, I can tell you that.
The universal rule of Iridinod says that therefore it is plump. It will be a plump white helmet snake, not a white plump helmet snake.
Yes, indeed. Possibly I should just give someone else the job of stoneworking. Right, our gem setter has become... Our gem cutter, rather, has gained some slight ability. What's the button? I want that one. Now an adequate gem cutter, in addition to being a novice gem setter. So I think I should dedicate them a little room for the purposes of my future jewellery industry, and see what we can do with it. I think we want it to be a bit bigger than that.
But I cut and pasted David's phrase.
Oh, what? Oh, you did have an anagram of plant become net snake, so it's only the phrase on the left that has a typo.
Oh, okay.
There's one end on the right and two ends on the left, so that's...
Where are you now? See, here's the problem. You tell someone to make rock blocks and they go off and haul in rocks from outside. Aha! The outpost liaison has arrived and a caravan has arrived. They've arrived quite some way above the valley floor. So let's at least shift that finished goods bin. That one has a load of cruft from downstairs. Suppose we can bring up some boring gems if we need them. But let's see what they've got to sell us.
Boring gems are like the diamond you tip drilled with.
Something like that, yes. So wagons are right. They've come down the side of the valley and are being hauled rather wonkily across and down a bit further.
Good night.
And in to our trade depot. There's the outpost liaison arriving to engage in foolish banter about trade. They're currently unloading. Can I build a lever yet? Let's just build a lever in this corner. That will eventually operate the drawbridge in case we ever need to seal this off. Right, what would we like? We would, in general, like very slight priority for every possible kind of wood. Which should get, since there will be so many different kinds of wood, should be enough to get them to bring some of everything. The annoying thing is I don't know what they've brought already, which would be kind of helpful. Slight priority for all kinds of weapon as well. And for useful armour. and all kinds of booze, because we're a bit short on that. I think we'll leave the rest to their thing. So we've just slightly increased the prices of things like wood. They would like us to provide them with primarily legwear and leather earrings. And look, we're just going to make what we make. You either get it or you don't. You either want it or you don't. Thank you. Still unloading. Not least the last few merchants are still coming in. Right. So what do they have that we might actually want? They've got some weapons, that's nice. Though we certainly can't afford much of them yet. So yes, we could certainly buy a lot more from them if we had anything to buy it with. I think I want first quickly trade some stuff for some booze because we are genuinely short of that. If I can find it. So if we were to buy, say, 1 barrel of dwarven beer in return for a frankly rather meagre, but let's see what happens, quantity of diorite trinkets, will you take that? I'll consider it, but I'll obviously want quite a lot more stuff if I'm giving you a 500's worth of large Alexandrite. Okay. And in return for that, we'll also demand a bronze helm. A nice cheap copper pick, I think. Do we have any edged copper weapons? Oh, a copper spear would be nice. A decent quality copper spear. bronze breastplate of the lowest possible quality. I think we can get away with asking for this one as well, I wonder. They're only slightly less extravagant but worth having. Frankly, just some copper caps are probably worth having, aren't they? Like, anything is better than nothing. Don't want those decorated copper high boots because we don't really need decorated items. Pair of decent quality copper gauntlets. That work, do we think? No, that's going to blow through our budget. Well, let's go for this and see if they'll take that trade at least. Right, good. Meanwhile, so that's got us some booze, and so yes, those things are not marked as being in process of trading, and so they will be automatically hauled downstairs. So the idea here is that this Craftsdwarf's workshop will be dedicated to crafting useful crafting trinkets out of silver, and then this jeweler's workshop will be there for maybe gem cutting, but mostly for encrusting the trinkets that we've just made with valuable gems. That's the theory anyway. So here we will have a bar stockpile, which will just take silver bars. Here we will have a finished goods stockpile, Does that work? Yes. Which will just consume finished goods from Kraftor's workshop. This will just give to that Kraftor's workshop, which means the Kraftor's workshop can only consume things that will only operate on silver. And there have a gem stockpile which will just contain I think anything actually. And will give to the jeweller's workshop, as will that give to the jeweller's workshop. So this is our little jewellery industry room, which is sadly rather full of rocks at the moment, but there we go. Where good stuff will happen. Now I want to open that up and then put a drawbridge in there that we can use to seal that off. It's going to turn out for some reason that we can't do that, isn't it? Obviously silly to have ramps down there, so let's clear them out. Oh, I screwed that up a bit, didn't I? That staircase should obviously go all the way to the bottom, so... No, that should be an upstair. Should be an up-down stair if possible. Slightly confused by the way that doesn't seem to be designating as an up-down stair, because surely you can convert an upstair into an up-down stair just by carving out the down bit of it. But we'll see. It may turn out that I've now screwed this up. No, okay, that worked perfectly well. Good. Now there's a lot of rock down there which we might like to move, I suppose. Because like we're about to flood that. Well, we are going to flood that area. I suppose what we do then, in order to do that like without incredible amounts of inefficiency, is we mark that as a stone stockpile, take from links only with no links. We then establish a temporary stone stockpile, say here, take from links only, take from that enormous pile of stone at the bottom of the reservoir. Maximum wheelbarrow 1. If we also disable wheelbarrows on this one, we'd actually just remove that stockpile entirely. So, okay, everyone's just going to lug those stones up by hand, are they? Right, okay, if that's what you want to do. There are enough of you that it'll work. So now I would like to build a drawbridge there, whose purpose is essentially to allow us to stop water flow, not so much stop water flowing into the reservoir as stop anything else flowing into the reservoir. That one should not have wheelbarrows enabled, that's silly. We want to build some more walls. We haven't actually got enough blocks for that yet. What are all those? Alright, we appear to have a bunch of naked mole dogs kicking around. That's kind of irritating. And some pond grabbers down there. We'd probably best not go and get grabbed by them. Probably also want to start farming again at some point, because we closed down the old farms owing to presence of irritating creatures. Let us remove cut gems from this stockpile. So then they'll get moved to the correct stockpile for cut gems. Do I have hauling disabled or something? No. To need more blocks anyway. We have a smelter now, so I can now set that to work smelting tetrahedrite. I think the naked mole dogs are probably after our food, which is kind of unfortunate. Right, the big pile of rocks at the bottom of the reservoir is now cleared. So we can turn off the temporary stockpiles that we use to move it. Let's just set my military disposing of this naked mole dog. Right, it'll give them some practice if nothing else. Since they have no weapons, they don't get much practice in anything useful, but still. Necromancer cleans up a bit. The naked mole dogs are buggered off to the surface, that's fine. We have slaughtered one of them. There's someone in there, isn't there, that I just can't see because they're dark blue. Yes. What are their skills anyway? What are you any good at? No good at anything, right. As soon as you get good at something, you'll actually probably turn a useful colour. So you do have gem cutting and gem setting enabled. And there's a cut lapis lazuli job pending there, and you're not doing it. Oh! Because a jeweller's workshop has a wall across the middle, or across the right hand side, so it's not actually possible for my jeweller to get out of that corner because their workshop is blocking it in, blocking them in. Let's give you an escape route then. There you go. So I don't think we have anyone who knows how to smelt metal. On the grounds it's a job you do near the mines. Become a furnace operator. Yeah, okay, you're going to haul a lump of tetrahedrite all the way from down here where it shouldn't have been anyway. Well, if you insist. We have a shortage of bins again. Let's assume we do. So you're just lugging that all the way up there. Probably for the best. Have we got enough blocks to build all the walls yet? How much are those mechanisms worth? The vague feeling mechanisms are vaguely valuable. Hmm. So I need someone to turn up and actually do some masonry. Where's my mason? My mason's asleep again. Or resting anyway. Resting? Is that the hospital? Okay, what's wrong with you and why isn't anyone like coming to diagnose your problem if you've got one? Okay, someone knows what you need. I'm just not paying enough attention to realise that they're probably sorting it out. Except that you've got distracted. I'm going to enable dressing wounds on you as well, and actually diagnosis. So I think we may be lacking a wound dresser. Oh yes, of the oh, they've cleared off while I wasn't looking. Right, bye-bye. In that case, let's release our broker. If you're going to come... Okay, yes, I was about to say if that naked mole dog's coming into the fortress, we're going to kill it, but the cat chased it away, so that's good. Okay, so I don't need to worry about how did you get injured anyway? Oh right, you beat up the you were the one who killed the naked mole dog for me. And since you had no weapons and no armour, this was a slightly painful operation. Thing about our chief medical dwarf being a terrifying... Why is... Did you not actually bother suturing them? Did it turn out that he'd healed enough anyway? Looks like it. There's our Apparently, like, actually just healed by lying around in the hospital for a bit. Make a rock coffer to stick in there. There isn't as yet anything in that bin. That worries me. Oh dear. One of the wagons has apparently fallen apart. And I want to attach that lever to that bridge. So what happened? I wonder what happened to the wagon. Did it just die of cold, or did it get stuck somewhere, I wonder? Maybe the wagons don't work very well in freezing conditions. Let's have a small charcoal stockpile here. Just to encourage having some charcoal near the smelter. Not necessary, but charcoal's fairly light, but need more doors. And now we should have some silver. I think strictly we're not guaranteed to get silver from any particular bit of smelting mind. What are you doing? What? Why is there a terrified horse in my fortress? Good. Okay, apparently it kicked a naked got into a fight with a naked mole dog, maybe, and is now terrified and is thus an awfully long way below the ground. Yes, we have two of the merchant's horses. I think I know what happened to the wagon now. I think the horses got into fights with the naked mole dog and destroyed the wagon and are now fleeing into the depths of the fortress. Which possibly means that somewhere out here there is a pile of merchant rubbish which they're going to be seriously pissed off at having lost. like goblinite, kind of merchantite. Probably actually find it just by looking for things on the stock screen, can't I? Like, what surprise weapons do we now have? Oh no, okay. Doesn't look like they've actually left their stuff behind, at least. But they did lose a wagon. And now we have these 2 merchant horses that will presumably attempt to leave the fort at some point. They've already left. Right, most of them. There's only 1 horse left. Still want my mason to get round to okay, we should exclude silver bars from this one so that they end up in the right place. Yes, a lot of our cut gems are now nicely in there, waiting for other things to be ready. Once we have, what's that? Oh, that can be dumped. Basically waiting for some. Alright, that bin has some silver bars in it, so now we could do. We've all, oh, do you not use? Oh dear, am I terribly confused and metal crafting doesn't happen at a craft force workshop? That would be embarrassing. Let's have a look. Oh right, you make those. Metal crafters make all of their things at Metalsmith's Forge. Right, so actually I wanted a forge there. Right, removes Craft Force Workshop. Right, and we're out of charcoal for now. So let's start taking down more trees that will produce more than 1 log. problem is we've got an awful lot of like tower caps and black caps around. Not so much by way of fungi wood and spore trees and tunnel tubes. Just fell everything that's reasonably reachable. Isn't really very much. Because quite a lot of the trees are growing in the really soggy bits of the caverns. Well, that's why we asked the traders to bring us wood. That's the thing we really don't have. But let's just see what jobs we can do. If we ask to schedule here... Oh no, that's a furnace. If we ask to schedule at the forge... Other objects, silver, we can then say, like, make silver crafts, yes, which is probably what we want to do. But probably not there. Indeed, actually what we should be doing here, except that we're going to need a bit more charcoal for this. Oh right, we've only got one anvil, of course. Stoats. So building my jewellery business is going to be hampered by the fact that we only have one anvil between... I'd want to build 2 metalsmiths' forges to make this organisation work nicely. Oh well, let us for now turn copper into armour. And collect gems and silver. While we ponder how to do this more generally. I think our woodcutter is currently out actually cutting down the wood. And Mason is building us some doors so that we can finish fitting all the bedrooms with doors. I don't really want to have to jump through lots of hoops to get a new anvil, but anvils need steel. I mean, the next trade caravan will come with an anvil, but they are also quite expensive. Let's install coffer in the hospital. That's not the hospital. Where's the hospital? Is this the hospital? Yes. So that there's somewhere to store hospital materials. We're not out of anvils, but we only own one anvil, and I would like us to own 2 anvils. Or rather, I would like to have 2 metalsmiths' forges. One for general purpose work, and one dedicated to making jewellery. That's the plan, anyway. Right, so now, oh, we need more mechanisms, don't we? We are at least now making more charcoal. So now we can make some armour. I think we want to make copper helms. At least one copper helm. Assuming, of course, we have anyone who's... that's the necromancer filling the... everyone filling the hospital with useful materials. Do we actually? I think we don't have anyone who's meant to be an armour smith at the moment, so let's take our weaponsmith and have him learn how to do armour as well. Oh, that. Yeah, there may be a slight problem with that bin ends up completely full of charcoal. Let's ban bins from this stockpile so that we don't end up... Alright, we've accidentally connected that to the ramp. So that's both inside and outside the fortress, which is obviously bad. Just construct a wall there to seal that back off from the caverns. There we go. So now we don't have the slightly embarrassing possibility of things wandering into the caverns through the silver mines. And now our weaponsmith is learning how to make armour. I mean, I feel that the skills should be somewhat transferable, but maybe not. Continue trying to install doors. sure that there are bedrooms. Mason is now distracted by building a mechanism, but that's fine. We probably could set up a better dining room, but that would involve making more furniture. Let's dig out an area that might eventually be a dining room. Because we have miners who don't have a lot of work to do, unlike our stoneworker who has a fair amount to do. Now we should connect that lever to not that bridge, but that bridge. So, everyone now has metal headgear assigned. Good. Bronze helm, copper cap. We didn't actually need any more headgear. On the other hand, shields may be unnecessary. So we only have one bit of leg wear anywhere in this lot. So let us make assuming we still have some copper. Do we want leggings or greaves? I think we probably want leggings. There's the big diagram of what things cover. Greaves and leggings are the same in that respect. So it looks like greaves are generally more effective armour, but they do require more copper. But the thing is, we don't actually have a shortage of metal, we have a shortage of coal. So yes, I think I should thus make 3 pairs of copper greaves. Here's our stonemason sorting out hooking up that drawbridge. So once that's done, there we are. Should now be able to pull that lever. That should then cause that drawbridge to close. Right, good. Now let's build a wall there. Dig a hole through that wall there. No, don't build it from that side, you idiot. I mean, how did you even get down there? Well, I'm going to let you try and then see if you can escape. No, you can't because you're an idiot. Do we just say, no, let's try to, no, sorry. Someone just come and dig another hole to get this guy out. Then we'll build another wall and hope someone can build that wall from the correct side. Dwarves usually built these things from the side they approached from. See, that's the right side to build that wall from. Right. So now we have all those walls in place. It should thus be safe to let the water from the underground lake into it. Annoyingly, we have a lump of stone in the way, which we would quite like to move. Oh. Yes, let's just do that silly trick we did before, only with like 2 stockpiles. That will cause someone to move that lump of stone. So now, if we channel here, that will remove that wall without embarrassing death of miner. And then the water will fairly slowly flood into there. Because the drawbridge is still closed, is still raised, the water won't actually pour into our reservoir yet. And because this underground lake extends off the side of the map, it will just replenish itself automatically. So I'm kind of going, oh, we should haul that extra stone out of there, shouldn't we? Do what we did before. I'm going to assume that stockpiles can't be three-dimensional. Hang on. So that's a very silly bit of hauling the stone out of that staircase, because it's just silly to leave stone in a staircase you're about to flood. One more piece of stone to haul out of that thing, please. How do we have so much imported wealth? I'm not sure. Does that count the stuff we brought in at the start? Like, because I've checked and it's not like we do have. I had wondered whether the caravan had left some stuff behind, but I think the wagon was destroyed before they loaded it, and so they didn't do that. So I'm not quite sure why we have a 14,000 imported wealth, allegedly. Does seem a bit weird. Come on, are you going to remove this remaining stone? Set to gift stockpile 14, which is that one. No one seems to actually want that job, though. There's plenty of space in that stockpile. No one seems to see it as their job to... I haven't, like, forbidden that lump of stone or something, have I? No, oh, there's even a job scheduled to deal with it. Right, alright, you're doing it right now. Right. Finally. Now I can remove all those stupid stockpiles. So there's now no stone kicking around in the reservoir, in the cistern. There's a reasonable amount of water in the leading to the cistern. So I think now we fill the cistern. We should build a well over it at some point, I suppose. We've got the bits for that. A diorite blocks, highwood bucket, pigtail rope, and a diorite mechanism. Right, let's build a well. And operate the lever that will let the water in, so that the well will be usable. Whee! Maybe I should have made the system bigger, I don't know. So we could just leave that drawbridge open, and I think and we won't actually flood the fortress. But I think it would be better to close it off once we have a reasonable amount of water down here. So at the moment we're 4/7 deep there. Take a little while to, because we've got this rather long shallow channel that the water has to come along. So meanwhile, everyone now has leg wear. We need one set of body armour. So for that, like, we can either make mail shirts or breastplates. Breastplates have the unfortunate consequence that they don't actually cover the arms, so I think everyone wants at least a mail shirt. So I think we want to make 4 copper mail shirts if we can afford that. Well, let's assume we can. Let's try it and see what happens. So we're still filling that up. Right, okay, we don't have enough copper at the moment for that. We need to smelt more copper. So we should prioritise having a small stock of charcoal up there so that the person doing the smelting doesn't keep having to run up and down the stairs. It smells medium-sized amount more. What's our current charcoal stock? We currently have 10 charcoal. Let's make some more charcoal as well. Obviously I really ought to automate all of this, but so the water will start now filling up into the second layer of the second Z level of the cistern. See exciting flickerings as the first seventh of that level fills up. So that's now 3/7 deep. The plan is to shut off the thing when the drawbridge when that gets to about 6/7 deep. Four. I do like the way you can see the water flowing down the leat. Someone is drinking from the well. Hurrah! That does mean we're out of booze. Someone is fishing in the well. It's probably not helpful and we should disable that. We are not a fish-based fortress. I have had fish-based fortresses in the past. They're kind of fun. Building coastal fortresses, you can get enough fish to live on, and then some. Presumably she's going to carry on fishing until she gets bored, even though I've told her not to. Right, the water is up to about 6/7. So now pulling that lever should stop the inflow of water. Like that. Now accumulate in the leach but not go anywhere. And meanwhile we have a cistern with water in it, so we finally have a water supply. And that water supply is isolated from the caverns, more or less. And is conveniently 2 squares deep, so even if there were a pile of mud at the bottom of it, it would not come out unpleasant. So that will make everyone happy. Right, and it is now the start of winter, so I think I will save and stop as soon as this is finished saving. So we have our fortress is doing all right. We're a bit short of drink. We have phenomenal amounts of meat for some reason. I think people keep butchering random things they find in the caverns. We're edging towards having a jewellery industry, and we have asked if please can the caravan bring wood so that we can convert it into charcoal to fuel our smelters and our forging industry, because we have a serious shortage of wood. So that's where we are, and we will be back on Friday. Please, if you wish, like and subscribe and all of that kind of thing. And yes, good night.